So it seems it's another rather massive Warhammer 40k release week. Hot on the heels of the Grey Knights and the Black Templars, we've got Leagues of Votann, Salamanders and a whole bunch of individual releases. Let's talk through the contents and what we've got. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where my box grills might not have quite recovered from Nurgle's blessings, but that's not going to stop me from talking about some big new 40k releases today. It seems that the turnaround from the big summer preview show that Games Workshop has done has been a surprisingly fast one. I feel like for most things that they reveal like that, there's usually something like a month's lag between the reveal and the things being actually released, but it seems that we've both got the Leagues of Votann main wave and a few Space Marines turning up as well. Pre-orders going live on Saturday the 9th of August, with the full sale happening on Saturday the 23rd. It does appear to be the entirety of the Leagues of Votann release wave, the Codex and its limited version, the dice and their datasheet cards, a new combat patrol, and then all their new kits. So that's 3 character miniatures, the Ironkin Steeljacks, the Capricus Transport, and those Earthshaker batterers. Then curiously enough, for the Space Marines, it's just Vulkan Hestan and the Salamanders Combat Patrol for the Space Marines. I would have guessed that they might have released them all as one big wave, but it seems that we're getting Salamanders before anyone else. And they also have the Salamander focused dice to go alongside. Then finally we've got some of the roundup individual releases that I'm sure some people have been waiting on for some time. The things that came out in the Deity Legion Battle Force box sets, so the Slaughterbound, Lord of Poxes and the Sekitar robots. Plus this one's also going to be the release week where Captain Centos is available on sale, but only in the Warhammer stores. Certainly a bit of a surprise on the release schedule front. It looks like the Imperial Knights have been leapfrogged by another Codex, further evidence that they're delayed. Hopefully Games Workshop gets to sort whatever problem they have sooner rather than later. I guess the further Space Marine release wave will be held back a bit. I don't know if they thought they'd be overloading people by putting everything out in 1 week. And I guess this is final confirmation that the Leagues of Votann do get their Combat Patrol box set, but they don't get a Battle Force box at launch. It feels like if that's the case, there's a pretty good odds for them getting a Christmas Battle Force box set, so that could be something to look out for featuring the new models later in the year. For the Votann though, it should mean that we get some rules previews this week. Games Workshop should keep their articles coming for them, and I'll certainly be looking forward to talking through their Codex when we get news of it. As ever though, if you are looking to pick up any of the things this weekend, feel free to check out the discount retailers. Their links down in the video description, and they can all save a good amount of money versus Games Workshop. There's Element Games in the UK for 15% off, Gap Games in Australia for 21, Fenris in Canada for 10, Wargame Portal in the USA for 15, and Tash and Geldeep for Germany in the EU, usually between 16 and 20. Here are the pre-order times for those stores between Friday night to Saturday morning. I probably wouldn't expect anything to get super sold out from Games Workshop. There's no fear of missing out Battle Force box sets this time around at least, though obviously individual stores might sell out of any one item depending on how many they chose to order in and trying to anticipate demand. In any case though, a big thank you to anyone buying stuff through those. It does help to support Auspex Tactics and the videos I make. Let's talk through the releases in brief though. First up we have Vulkan Hestan, a really quite nice resculpt of the Salamander's Forge Father. Fairly faithful resculpt to the original one with his mantle, great big spear and flame gauntlets. His miniature was really quite well received when I put it to a vote. Games Workshop said there'd be some lore stories about these new characters coming out. If he gets one as well, then it could be an update as to his hunt for the relics and whether or not there's any chance of Vulkan coming back. That could be really quite a good interim thing if they do plan to reintroduce him to the setting at some point. I guess pricing will be around about £28 and $45, and I suspect there'll be no need to give him a digital updated datasheet. The one from Codex Space Marine should work quite well for him. He buffs Torrent and Melter weapons and has his fun objective scoring rule, and they did confirm that those things will broadly be staying. He's certainly usably powerful and really good with certain units. He gets on well with things like Land Raider Redeemers or Infernus Marines. Here's a few more shots for the model. He's now got a head swap as well, so you can field him bareheaded if you'd like. And there's a shot of his mantle at the back. I'm sure he'll be popular. I think he was one of the most anticipated resculpts for the Finecast models that we had left for the Space Marines. Alongside him there's Combat Patrol Salamanders as well. This one's got Adrax Agatone, the other Salamanders character, 3 Eradicators, 10 Infernus Marines, 5 Assault Intercessors, the Invader ATV, and then I believe a new sheet of Salamanders transfers. It's maybe a bit of a weird box set as the numbers on it are quite good. You get around about 500 points in the box. A pretty reasonable discount on the models contained is around 30%, and the amount of plastic in the box is quite good, though despite that there's just a whole bunch of things that'll put people off. People might have loads of Infernus Marines from Leviathan early in the edition. The Invader ATV is one of the less loved Space Marine models as they go. The Assault Intercessors again might be ones that people have a lot of if they collected through 9th edition, and Adrax Agatone is a really cool Salamanders character, but Salamanders players who have him will have less desire, and people who don't play Salamanders, he could be a turn-off. Overall, a bit of a weird case of a Space Marine box set that's got a lot of good numbers to it, but might not practically be a very good box set for that many people. You guys did rate it a bit mid overall. Finally, for the Salamanders release, there's some Salamanders dice as well. Interestingly, not going with the Legion sort of green colour, going sort of flame wreathed. The dice are usually £19, $33 or €24. Moving on from Fiery Space Marines to the Leagues of Votann, they've got their new Codex coming out with a bunch of different ways to play. We don't know much about the detachments yet, but there's going to be 5 of them, and reportedly 21 datasheets as well, which is kind of interesting, as I think that implies one more than we know about. Maybe they could be doing something like a split datasheet. Perhaps they could be doing a split datasheet for the Hearthkin salvages or something, or it could be something minor to do with characters. They have a new faction mechanic to replace the judgment tokens, and that one's called Prioritized Efficiency, using yield points. We don't know the exact mechanic yet, but it basically sounds like you have to fight over and acquire objectives, and then you get bonuses for doing so. So all very focused on acquisition and gain, as the kin seem to be. They mentioned single unit rerolls or army-wide buffs to the hit roll. My guess is that judgment tokens might feature in one of the detachments, but not all of them now. Hopefully Games Workshop will be generous with some previews over the week. I'm sure there's lots to talk about with the new detachments and faction mechanics. Then for the new models for them, we've got the Arcanist Evaluator Scientist guy. He's got a Fond Transmatter Inverter gun that's got 3 different firing profiles. Apparently he's going to gain the lone operative keyword when he's near infantry. I'm hoping he might get a price tag that's a little cheaper versus some characters out there. I guess we'll find out soon enough. He does have some fun factor and his model has a head swap. The Memnir Strategist is an Ironkin character. He's got some extra floating brains all plugged into him for extra logic, I guess, and quite a cool pose and some flowing robes as well. His model broadly went down quite well. I guess again that he might well be a support character kind of price tag. In the article they confirmed that he leads Ironkin and gives them the free heroic intervention or Overwatch, so a bit of anticipation with the stratagems there. And he also allows you to gain or spend yield points when you're near objectives, so tying into the core faction mechanic however that might be. It doesn't look like it's going to be much personal threat though. Talking of the Ironkin Steeljacks, they'll probably be towering over him a bit. Great big chunky combat bodies for the kin, and either armed with a melee focused loadout of plasma swords or concussion gauntlets with bolters along, or heavy vulcanite disintegrators for a ranged option. I guess spams devastating wounds there. I'd expect them to be priced as Games Workshop standard 3-model elites kit, maybe around the £37 or $60 kind of mark. Here's a few more shots of the different weapons, including their concussion gauntlet. We know at least a fair bit of their rules already. They should be in squads of 3 or 6. In the article today they confirmed that they have a 2+ save. They said they were kind of equivalent to Wraithguard and their 3 wounds and toughness 6. And we know their special rule is a Prey Mark Crest, getting critical hits to receive precision for enemies within range of an objective. Maybe not super unhelpful, but not reliably helpful. Hopefully they'll be a good damage and defense style unit for the kin that can take to the front lines. Next up we've got the Chthonian Earthshakers, basically a massive version of the Mole Mortar that you can get on the Berserk's kit. There's 2 models in the kit, and each of them are crewed by 3 Space Dwarfs, and they do have a few different poses and head and arm swaps. They also come with a couple of different tokens as well of the moles burrowing out of the ground. I'm guessing maybe around about the £34 or $58 price, that based on the Astra Militar and Field Ordnance batteries, which feel fairly equivalent. They're based on the Mole Mortars that squats used to have back in their original incarnation. Kind of fun to see a modern interpretation of something from so long ago. Here's a view of them from top down. And for how they function in game, they're going to be longer range than most Votann weapons and fire indirect, so we'll be likely paying a premium for that. Apparently they get either Breacher or Tremor shells, so it sounds like a choice of ammunition types. If I had to guess with that, the Breacher ones will be trying to deal damage, Tremor ones might be slowing down enemy units perhaps. Then we've got another light transport for the Votann. This one's the Capricus Carrier or Defender, and it's supposed to be a Scouty Hernkin style vehicle. The Carrier can transport 5 Jaegers. The Defender is a gun turret. It hovers forward on the big anti-grav sort of turbine things that the Hernkin Pioneers get, and this one's the Carrier version that's the transport one, and this one's armed with 3 autocannons. I guess around about the £37 or $60 kind of mark. That's based on the Genestealer called Achilles Ridge Runner. Here's the Defender variant, which is really quite similar in appearance really. It's just got a different big gun on the top, either the High-Las rotary cannon or a Magna rail cannon, and then it seems to have a couple of small grenade launcher things on either side of the vehicle too. Seems like it might have a bit of an overlap role with the Sagittor in its way, at least for the transport version. It transports 5 Jaegers and can split the unit in 2. I guess probably a 12-inch move. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't have the Scout keyword, given that the Hernkin Pioneers have. I guess it's good potential as 2 different variants of the datasheet. Each one of them could potentially be useful. I'm a bit apprehensive as to whether or not putting an infiltrate unit in a transport is going to be a great idea though. Finally, in a pretty cool centerpiece model, we've got Buri Egnisson. He's a named character and the last remaining survivor of his league. perhaps the single most ornate relic space dwarf that we've seen out of the Votann range so far, is wearing a slain tyrannid and carrying an enormous Darkstar glaive called Bane. Again, I'll guess Games Workshop's fairly standard epic hero pricing for this one, £28 or $45 or so. It looks like he's perhaps one of people's single favourite Leagues of Votann models that they've seen so far. Rules wise, he's going to be a lone operative epic hero, is good against monsters and has a very fighty profile, and then has a 2+ chance of reviving on death, which is quite a big deal for a lone operative as it's often hard to get damage on them in the first place. Feels like he's probably angling for the same sort of function as, say, maybe Mephiston or Lucius the Eternal. I'm not sure if he's going to be quite their level of might, depends on how generous Games Workshop are feeling to him. Certainly seems like he's going to be a fun unit though, and a force to be reckoned with. The Leagues of Votann also have dice and datasheet cards as well. Looks like their dice are a sort of teal colour. The dice are usually these prices on the screen, the datasheet cards I think usually a little bit more, and it gives you the standard ones in the Codex plus the Combat Patrol ones. And talking of which, they do have a new Leagues of Votann Combat Patrol too, usually $170, £100 or €130. The new one has an Einhir Champion, 3 Brockhere Thunderkin, 10 Hearthkin Warriors and 5 Einhir Hearthguard. At least pre-Codex numbers, that's around about 390 points in the box, maybe a little bit on the middling side there, but we don't know where they'll wind up once the Codex comes out. The theoretical discount in the box is a bit on the low side, around about 24%, but still enough to be useful, and it is a fairly nice balanced selection of Votann units. You guys voted it a 3.6 out of 5, slightly on the upper end of Combat Patrol offerings I think that is. Seems more or less as useful as the last one, a solidly helpful box if maybe not crazy standout. Between all that, it should be a pretty good week for the kin. I'll certainly look forward to talking about any rules that crop up for them. Finally, we've got a bunch of individual kit releases. There's the Slaughterbound for the World Eaters. I'm going to guess around about £26 or $42. Could be a little bit more as he is quite a big chunky character I suppose. He's been at least fairly popular in World Eaters lists, often accompanying some scouting 8-bound up the board to have a bit more threat in the unit. He can certainly be scary enough with some enhancements on the go, and if the opponent ever does make the mistake of leaving 8-bound half killed, you can get back some very valuable models. For the Death Guard, there's the Lord of Poxes. He's got a fun miniature with his miasma generator turbine thing on the back, plus an enormous double-handed plague weapon. In current Death Guard, he's pretty niche compared with very good competition from other buffing characters that can make Plague Marines extra nasty. And again, I suspect somewhere around Games Workshop's character style pricing for how much he'll cost. For the Thousand Suns, we've got their Sekitar robots. I'm a bit less sure for the pricing on these guys. Again, I've estimated around about the Astra Militarum Field Ordnance batteries, £34 or $58. Could be a bit more potentially. They're sort of halfway between 40k automata robots and ancient Egyptian statues with some Thousand Suns wizardry thrown in. They may be a little bit take or leave in army lists, but even if they're not the most efficient infiltrators in the world, having something with the keyword does have value, and they can have a fairly punchy Overwatch at least. All of these came out in their Battle Force box sets, so at least some people who want them will already have them, but I'm sure plenty of people didn't want to buy a whole load of extra units again, and have just been waiting out for the single releases. Finally, as they'd already announced, this is the week of Captain Centos coming out as well. He's the generic Space Marine captain that's going to be turning up in stores due to their celebration on the numbers of those that they have. That does mean that he won't be in the web store though, and is only going to be available to get if you've got local Games Workshop stores nearby. I believe he'll be on sale from the 9th of August. I guess any one store might have more or less supply of them. I feel like he's got a nice enough pose for a captain and does look maybe a little bit Pedro Cantor, as some people have been saying. He is a generic character though and doesn't have to be painted up as Ultramarines or anything, and while he might have some Legends rules, can just be fielded as a regular captain in Codex Space Marines. In any case though, that's a pretty fast turnaround on the next 40k Codex and release wave. I must admit I was guessing Leagues of Votann might not turn up for another month or so at this rate, but seems they're jumping to the next Codex nice and early. I guess that just literally leaves the Drukari and the Imperial Knights to go in terms of expected Codex releases for 10th edition. Let me know your thoughts on the releases, which ones are you looking to pick up if any. I'll certainly have a good read through the comments. If you were picking up anything at the weekend, then feel free to use the channel's affiliate discount links in the video description. They do save some money versus the Warhammer web store, and they do help to support Auspex Tactics as well. There's a whole bunch of them at different places around the world. Here are the pre-order times for the stores linked below and roughly when the boxes will be going live. In any case though, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. Hopefully my voice will be a bit better for the next few days. Certainly going to be needing it if there's lots of rules to be talked about for the Space Dwarves. Certainly looking forward to taking a look at new rules for them. Finally, if you've been enjoying the videos and you'd like to support the channel a bit more directly, there's the Patreon page which is linked down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.